Bitter criticism from mm, I don't remember if I say from Global South. Bitter criticism from Global South. I guess not, isn't it? Never say that. Well, or yeah, maybe bitter criticism from Global South. Oh no, I will say night, isn't it? Bitter criticism, night. As Hassan Akram said, we are an imaginary journal, but it's fine. We have a better. We are alone. I'm doing this all alone, and it's fine. But you know, Hassan, you don't have a beautiful view like me, like mine, or like there this. I was listening some radio, and then I heard some Chilean guy saying that they didn't have a beautiful view, but they was in the sea. So so bad for them, for him, isn't it? He's on the sea, a lot of seagulls and stinky sea. You know, the sea stinks. Well, I have two news from Pepe Escobar. I guess this in this journal I always will read some news from Pepe Escobar's Telegram. He always, well, as you know, as I tell you, he sometimes he publish in some newspapers or magazines, and then he publish on Telegram, of course, because it's him, is his. And sometimes he posts some charges, posts some bullshit. I'm sorry, but well, it's just a telegram, and he published other telegrams. That's the important thing. He introduced you a lot of another channels, you know. And if you like Telegram, you will find a lot of channels. That's the thing you have to do to get how to say new information, you know, information from the fresh information, you know, from the base, yeah, for information from the I mean, oh, I forgot the word. To be in first hand, you know. Anyway, I'm gonna read two news from this Pepe Escobar's Telegram, and this is a site called zeroedge.com. Zero political. Pepe Escobar empire. Well, Escobar, the Empire's Revenge, set fire on Saudi. Maybe I read this. The Empire's Revenge set fire to southern Eurasia, April 24th, 3 days ago, by Tyler Burden, authored by Pepe Escobar. The collective cognitive dissonance. Well, I did read this. Yeah, I read this. Yeah, it was okay. It has at least one. It has at least one good paragraph. Well, and this is the same article. Well, the same article in Global South .co, which I don't know where it's from. CEO is like Colombia, I guess. I don't know. Co-CEO. Maybe it's Colombia. Who knows? Yeah, well, it was a nice. And in the bottom of the site you have all the articles from Pepe Escobar, I guess. March 31, March 22, March 14, April. Anyway, there's a lot of articles. Well done. Well, this time I will not read anything from Pepe Escobar's Telegram because I just read it. I just will read. I just have Russia Today news. That's all. Russia hippie today. You maybe you are too young to know this, but in the 70s there was a lot of hippie people wearing helmets, war helmets, and without fixing it on their head. I don't know, just like that, just like hippie. And anyway, but nowadays Russia is not a hippie, isn't it? But you know, hippies, I have to criticize hippies because Russia is doing better than the hippies, you know, or the USSR, it was better than the hippies. The hippies didn't achieve nothing, you know. Anyway, April 27th, from just today, from even maybe 2 hours ago. US opens immigration centers in Latin America. I guess I'm gonna read this. The newly opened processing facilities in Colombia and Guatemala are meant to cut back on asylum claims. The US is setting up 2 new processing centers in Colombia and Guatemala as part of its efforts to manage the record high number of immigrants entering the country, officials announced on Thursday. The centers, operated by international NGOs, will screen new arrivals for asylum eligibility before they reach the US border, and if they aren't eligible, refer them to other legal routes. Migrants might be granted passage into the US for family reunification or under labor or parole programs. Those not accepted could be redirected to third countries, including Canada and Spain, a senior administration official told reporters. That's fine. Maybe I will take Canada. Maybe I will be there. I will choose Canada before the US. We expect to be able to pretty dramatically increase the number of refugees we admit from the Western Hemisphere here through the regional processing centers, a US official said. The US is already working with other Latin American countries to open more processing centers, and it's said to be streamlining the admission of migrants' families. The policy shift coincides with the repeal of Title 42, a COVID-19 era emergency order left over from the administration of former President Donald Trump that allowed some migrants to be turned away at the border. Then when that measure expires on May 11, Customs and Border Protection CBP expects between 10,000 and 30,000 migrants to attempt the border crossing every day. Such a figure will swamp not only the CBP but the Department of Homeland Security and every agency, the NGO tasked with processing and sheltering the new arrivals. I will leave here this news. I guess they are doing well. I only will read a polemic news because this is the Russia Today specialty. Well, this is a news that says something about Russia. Fed share duped by Russian pranksters. I don't know very well what Fed is, but let's see it. Jerome Powell, the head of the U.S. Central Bank, predicted a recession in his phone call with a fake Vladimir Zelensky. U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell predicted a recession and acknowledged the central bank's role in creating it in a candid conversation with celebrated Russian pranksters Vovan and Lexus, whom he believed to be Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Oh, it was a prank, I guess. The tricksters, whose real names are Vladimir Kuznetsov and Alexei Stolyarov, shared several clips from their January chat with Powell on Thursday. A recession is almost as likely as very slow growth in 2023, Powell predicted, acknowledging, "I think that's partially because of us having raised rates quite a bit, but this is what it takes to get inflation down. What we need is a period of slower growth so that the economy can cool off, so the labor market can cool off, so that wages can cool off, everything cool off. That's how inflation comes down." Let's read it again. What we need is a period of slower growth so that the economy can cool off, so the labor market can cool off, so that wages can cool off. That sounds logical. That's how inflation comes down. The central banker continued. It can be painful, but we don't know of any painless way for inflation to come down. You know what works in Global South? Criminality. Yeah, criminality. If the criminality increase, people think, whoa, things are too bad. Let's stop. I don't know. Stop the inflation. That's real story. Powell revealed that 2 more rate hikes were already baked into the market, and that even more could follow, even while admitting the Fed had raised the rates historically sharply last year to get to the place where we are now. Amid last year's punishing rate hikes, however, Powell had seemed unconcerned with skeptics' recession predictions, insisting the markets were well positioned to withstand tighter monetary policy. Aside from inflation, the main issues imperiling the U.S. economy were the conflict in Ukraine, instability in China, and the debt ceiling, Powell told the pranksters. I don't get what is pranksters and what this is news, because it's just a prank. He repeatedly apologized to the fake Zelensky for being unable to do more to support the Ukrainian war effort, explaining that he had limited ways to shift economy policy in Kiev's favor, and that this was the Treasury's job. As Fox Zelensky wrapped up the call with a request for a printing press, Powell joked that the Fed had won but kept in the basement, and the pair shared a chuckle over the possibility of building as a Federal Reserve Bank in Kiev. A Fed spokesperson reassured the public that no sensitive or confidential information was discussed with the officers. The matter has been referred to appropriate law enforcement, and out of respect for their efforts, we won't be commenting further, they told Axios, without elaborating on what law the fake Zelensky or the real Powell were supposed to have broken. Volvo and Lexus have pranked dozens of Western politicians and celebrities in recent years, impersonating a broad range of public figures from Russian President Vladimir Putin to environmental activist Greta Thunberg. I don't get it. Russia Today used to be better. Bitter criticism on Russia Today. Criticism on Russia Today. The EU has globed up Ukrainian grain meant for Africa. Oh, this is a huge news, and I don't care, dude. I don't care about. I hope. Well, we have grain here in Chile. But this is interesting. I guess it's interesting. The EU has globed up Ukrainian grain meant for Africa. The grain deal intended to solve food crisis in poor countries is only serving to flood European markets. Well, this is very critical for the world, isn't it? I don't know. Rachel Merson is a columnist, political strategist, and host of independently produced talk shows in French and English. And maybe if I have some time, I will read this. We'll let this here in the first. This is classical Russia Today. Look, this is from yesterday, April 26th. Timofey Bordashev, the US is humiliating Germany, and Russians are deeply disappointed at the spinelessness of Berlin's elites. Spineless. Well, I will search for spine. This divorce feels politically motivated and artificial, and one day things will probably change. By Valdai Club program director Timofey Bordashev. We have a photograph here, a file photo from Russian President Vladimir Putin in the right, with a lot of flags of. Well, this is a very recent photo. Olaf Scholz and Vladimir Putin made a reunion, and they are Vladimir Putin with 4 Russian flags behind him, and Olaf Scholz with one from EU and one from Germany, EU again, and Germany again. 4 flags too. And German Chancellor Olaf Scholz give a joint press conference after several hours of one-on-one talks in the Kremlin, and they don't look very friendly. Well, anyway, the German Foreign Ministry had decided to expel about 20 staff members of the Russian embassy in Berlin. According to media reports, about a third of those employed at the main German mission in Russia, more than 30 people may live in the near future. Under these circumstances, the arrival of the new ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, the sophisticated politician and diplomat Alexander Graf Lambsdorff, may lose its significance. In theory, relations in general could be partially frozen, which is exactly what the head of the German Foreign Ministry, Annabella Baerbock, which I think is so hot, so cool. For her, the fight against Russia has become the main thrust on her higher office. Russia itself is not particularly upset, but neither is it celebrating this turn of events. The downgrading of diplomatic relations between Russia and Germany is unlikely to be a tragedy or of universal proportions and historical significance for our peoples and states. First of all, any model of interaction between great powers cannot endure as long as they exist only as formally independent actors in international politics. There is no point in lamenting the fate of the special relationship between Russia and Germany. It began in unique historical circumstances and it ends amid a different situation given the circumstances of our time. However, there is no need for to worry, because every relationship is a product of the ability of different cultures to come to terms with each other and their basic interests, defined by geopolitical location and resources. The Russians and Germans seem to be able to get along. During several centuries of close proximity, starting in the middle of the 16th century, we have cooperated quite fruitfully. That said, we are also prone to fighting each other, and there have been two violent conflicts in the last 100 years. The first time, the war resulted from the development of a system of European empires that were doomed to clash sooner or later. The second time, Moscow had to fight Berlin when the Germans went collectively insane as a result of their defeat and humiliation in 1918, and with their customary diligence embarked on the most horrific atrocities in human history. I miss the first one in the century, but the second is obviously Nazism. But the first one, the first time the war resulted from the development of a system of European empires that were doomed to clash sooner or later. I miss that. I don't know exactly this fight. Maybe it was even Prussia, Prussia against Russia, and the first war. Yeah, maybe it was the first war. I don't remember. The reluctant switch to competition between Russia and Germany is a result of the present schism. Schism is an accidental phenomenon caused by special circumstances. Both know that cooperation is ultimately in their vital interests. This does not mean, however, that the conflict, which is now deepening, will be short-lived. It may well last for a generation, but the two powers are certainly not condemned to perpetual confrontation. The main feeling in Russian-German relations at the moment is one of disappointment. We are deeply disappointed at how spineless the Germans have proven to be in the face of American influence in European affairs. Much more was expected of Berlin, and the country's economic strength provided a very real basis for those expectations. Now the German authorities have not only destroyed the basis of economic relations with Russia, but are gradually becoming one of Ukraine's most important sponsors. You know what I think about this? Germany, indeed, they have a lot of they had a lot of support from the U.S. They own everything to the United States, because after World War II there was a plan for disappear, to erase German, for completely erase it, like make a divide Germany and stuff, and there was the Marshall Plan. So Germany owes everything to the U.S. It's like it's more than a strategic thing. It's more like it is strategic, but this is history. It's the past of Germany. Depends on the U.S. too. That's what I think. For its part, Germany is upset that Russia has unwillingly put the final nail in the coffin of Berlin's peaceful dominance over the rest of Western Europe. This was already becoming increasingly problematic with the British withdrawal from the European Union. The strengthening of Poland's political position and the sabotage of a weakening France all played their parts. The US knew it had a golden opportunity to activate all its European resources and drive the Germans into the clutches of full NATO responsibility, from which they had been trying to escape since the end of the Cold War. In both cases, the fundamental reason for the mutual irritation is the destruction of the ideal picture of the future from the point of view of each of the actors. The question is how long the cooling will last and what changes may occur in the meantime. Few countries in the world are as ideally suited to each other as Russia and Germany, or more precisely the Russian and the German people. In terms of Eurasian geopolitics, these two social communities balance the center of the vast continent, with China and Britain plus the United States on the periphery. Economically, Germany's population and industrial density are ideally suited to Russia's energy exports. Culturally, Russians and Germans are the very opposites that attract. It is not coincidence that so many German natives found themselves in the civil service, cultural life, and business worlds of Tsarist Russia. What? It's not coincidence that so many German natives found themselves in the civil service, cultural life, and business worlds of Tsarist Russia. Well, I missed that, because Tsarist Russia was maybe 2 centuries ago. German moderation is exactly what the boundless Russian nature lacks. Boundless. And it's like the Russians are like eccentric, I guess. And in recent decades, it has become commonplace to see a German manager patiently working somewhere in Urengoy. For the Germans, we are those who do not look at them with the arrogance of the French or Anglo-Saxons. Yeah, that's me. Well, I like culture. That's interesting, because this is I know something about this, because the French and the English are like arrogant and I don't know, dark people. Or dark minded, I don't know, poisoned people. Historically, Russia and Germany are late industrializers, well behind Britain and France, France and US, and their logistical and financial hub in the form of the Benelux countries. That is why the 20th century was so cruel to both great powers. It consolidated the leadership of the leading capitalist countries and brought the others to the brink of survival. Russia came through it more successfully. Only the empire was lost, but we retained full sovereignty and control over our own territory. Germany was less fortunate, and as a result of the events of the last century, it was effectively deprived of the right to determine its own destiny and submitted to the control of the US. Yeah, that's what I was saying, that Germany was like controlled, recreated, and they own everything to the US, because of Plan Marshall. Because after the war, Germany was completely destroyed. They maybe will disappear, completely disappear, completely turn into a Ukraine, a country, I don't know, agricultural country, Nevertheless, until recently, the German elite were allowed to decide on foreign economic relations, but now even that privilege is being taken away. Well, this is the most precious is the more precious. It's not a paragraph, it's just like a sentence. I will read it again. Nevertheless, until recently, the German elite were allowed to decide on foreign economic relations, but now even that privilege is being taken away. Yeah, Germany is like a serf. They can do nothing. The general crisis of the world economy and the West's retreat from its position of 500 years of unconditional global domination required it to restructure itself internally, or at the very least force it to search for new formats. However, is at the helm of Germany should be well placed to do so, but Chancellor Scholz is a weak leader, and his Social Democrats are in one of their worst states as a political force. The other two parties are the Greens and the Liberal Democrats. According to respected Russian experts on German domestic affairs, the Greens are a collection of exalted moralists for whom the fight against Russia and friendship with the US is a matter of faith. Well, this article is absolutely great. I like, because moralism. This moralism is a plague, a plague all over the world. This is a stupid. It is a stupid thing from people, Of course, here in Chile too. Moralism. What is moralism? It's not productive, It's nothing productive. It's just stupidity. The author is Valdai Club Program and Director Timofey Bordachev. Well, I like it. Timofey Bordachev. I will search more about him. According to respected Russian experts on German domestic affairs, the Greens are a collection of exalted moralists for whom the fight against Russia and friendship with the US is a matter of faith. Personally, I find this view difficult to accept. I think that the irresponsibility of Berg's book, for example, is nothing more than the product of pure careerism on the part of a politician who is not backed by any of the conservative groups with clear economic interests. But what the hell? Maybe I am wrong, and there really is a place for pure ideology in German politics. I don't think so. I think you know what Pepe Escobar says about the Greens? That CIA is behind the Greens, and this is pretty logical. All the more as so all the woke agenda, you know, Greens, LGBT, anti-racism, anything that is not Marxist. Yeah, I'm Marxist. All the more so as the size of the creative class that doesn't produce public goods is also significant in Germany. The Greens policy is now directed simultaneously against the classical German economic model, with its dependence on Russian energy resources, and against Moscow itself as a symbol of solidarity with the global agenda on the West. The pivot away from Russia and towards the Atlantic is quite decisive. And at the same time, the possibilities of self-reliance are diminishing. Just a few days ago, the last nuclear power plant in Germany was ceremonially shut down. And at the same time, the voters of the country are as silent as the people in Alexander Pushkin's tragedy Boris Godunov. Ordinary German citizens have no desire to get involved in a conflict with Russia, which means that the gap between the elite and the broader population is growing. The emerging form of Germany's relationship with its large eastern neighbors has a distinctively political, artificial character. In Russia, Germans as such are not universally disliked, unlike the Poles or the British, for example. So Russians hate British and Poles. Yeah, that's well. We have a lot of news here against the British in Russia today, which is funny. So we cannot say how long the current deterioration in relations will last, but I have no particular doubt that at a new turn in history, Russia and Germany will meet again and become friends again. Well, so far, I don't know why the Greens win. Maybe, you know, I read a lot this. I read over and over again this book from Thomas Piketty, The Capital and Ideology, and they say that I forgot Piketty, you know, he always talk about the thing he talk about, the inequality. Yeah, well, Piketty is a synonymous of inequality. He said in the introduction that This is a fatalist resignation. Why people vote on green? Why green? Because of fatalist resignation. You know, people maybe mentally, intellectually, people just died. The masses just died. And in the global south, masses never understood nothing. You know, that's the truth. They just are living in a rich country, rich in natural resources like lithium, copper, everything, and they just give away and take drugs, drink a lot of alcohol, and think about nothing, and that's it. It's a terrible life. It's a terrible life, and people don't know nothing. They will never know nothing. They are resignated, you know. This is a fatalist resignation, and they, I don't know, they vote in green. Yeah, why not? Because the world is full of plastic, and that's full of plastic, and that's so bad, and we'll vote green. Yeah. And this is the same what happened in Germany, you know. People they tried communism, but they think communism is over, and that's it. They think they don't want to know. They don't even want to know if alliance with the US is good or bad. They are resignated, you know. They are died. They are dead. The masses are dead. They don't want to think about nothing. Yeah. Well, we have a news that I will not read it. I don't know if I do this program for 1 hour or just 47 minutes, but this is a news that said European state to issue fines for wearing symbols of World War II victory over Nazis. Well, I will tell you fast. Moldova. Yeah. Well, I will not read this because Moldova. You know what I think? What that happens right here in Chile. I just saw a car. I don't know if it was from Moldova, Romania, or Andorra, but this was a president from one of those countries. I just saw on the street with a lot of police. Anyway, I'm gonna read this from Turkey, April 27th, from 3 hours ago. Erdogan hails Turkey joining nuclear club. The country's first nuclear power plant received a shipment of fuel from Russia on Thursday. Maybe uranium, isn't it? We have a photograph from Erdogan. Recep Tayyip Erdogan delivers remarks during a ceremony marking the delivery of fuel of a nuclear plant in Ankara, Turkey, April 27. Turkish President Recep Tayyip maybe the name is Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has announced his country's entry into the rank of nuclear-powered nations after the first delivery of fuel to the Akuyu power plant on Thursday. The facility is Turkey's largest joint project with Russia. With the delivery of nuclear fuels by air and sea to our power plant, Akuyu has now gained the status of a nuclear plant. Erdogan proclaimed during a ceremony that he and Russian President Vladimir Putin attended virtually. Nothing that they are 422 nuclear reactors in operation in the world and 57 under construction. Erdogan praised how meticulously our engineers and workers labored to complete the 20 billion 4,800 megawatt plant, which survived a pair of devastating earthquakes in February without sustaining any damage. The plant is our biggest joint investment with Russia, Erdogan stated, adding that it will be scaled up to full operation by 2028. By then, it will supply 10% of the country's energy needs, lessening Turkey's reliance on imported fossil fuels. Based on our experience in this project, we will take action as soon as possible for our second and third nuclear power plants, which we plan to construct in different regions, Erdogan said. Construction on the Akuyu project began in 2018 with work carried out by a subsidiary of Russia's state nuclear energy firm Rosatom. Approximately 30,000 people were employed on the site during the busiest phases of its construction. Speaking at Thursday ceremony, Putin praised Erdogan for paying great attention to the expansion of Russian-Turkish relations. Unlike the rest of its NATO allies, Turkey did not impose sanctions on Russia after Moscow launched its military operations in Ukraine last year. Instead, Moscow and Ankara increased their bilateral trade and agreed last August that Turkey would purchase natural gas from Russia in rubles. Putin and Erdogan have met several times since the conflict in Ukraine began. Prior to Thursday's ceremony, the two leaders also held a phone conversation in which they discussed the Ukraine conflict, the grain deal between Moscow and Kiev, brokered by the UN and Ankara, as well as developments in Syria and other regional issues. The Turkish president's administration said, "Well, that's a good strategy, to avoid conflict with Russia is to be friend with Russia, Turkey is a NATO country, but looks like they will never have a war, because they are friends." Anyway, I guess I'm going to 1 hour. 1 hour of, but it's 100 minutes, like, I don't know. It says 1 hour. The clock, I mean. This is from 4 hours ago, and we have the Maria Sakharova, which is muse. Pepe Escobar loves her. Anyway, Moscow responds to EU call for Serbia to ban Russian media. Moscow responds to EU call for Serbia to ban Russian media. Well, Serbia is a friend of Serbia is a friend of. I lost my voice. I just lost my voice. That is I guess it's lack of water. Well, I will end here, and I will show this video to my phonoaudiologist to tell her that I cannot speak 50 minutes.